Do you need a break?
You read my mind.
Come with me.
Come with me, and we'll be in a world of pure imagination. Well, part of my show is about worlds of imaginations, movies, TV shows. We have to talk about the Oscars, and I also talk about life and about reality and about the stuff that we face. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. I'm happy that you're listening. As always, this podcast is brought to you thanks to my wonderful community of supporters over at patreon.com/Father Roderick. If you want to help me reach out to so many people, and I'm always encountering new people when I stream live or when I do my shows on either as a podcast or as a video, if you want to help me, then take a look at that community and support me with these small monthly micro donations. You do yourself a favor because you get extra long shows. I make premium shows for my patrons, but you also, more importantly, help a lot of other people discover this content.
How do you not like movies?
They're predictable. Like, the guy gets the girl and that kid sees dead people and Darth Vader is Luke's father.
Not liking movies is like not liking puppies.
They're fine. I just get bored and never make it to the end.
You know, you need a movie education. You need a movication. I'm gonna give it to you.
All right, we need to talk about the Oscars because yesterday evening, I'm recording this on Monday. You may be listening to this on Tuesday because that's usually when we start to put the show out. But yesterday evening was the night of the Oscars. It's always a massive event. Of course, it was a little bit more subdued during COVID, but now the show is back in its full glory. And my goodness, was it glorious. I've only seen excerpts. They don't air it live over here. And even if they did, it would be in the middle of the night. So I was unable to see that. But of course, we've got YouTube. We've got all these social networks and platforms. I saw lots of stuff about the Oscars, even the stuff that happened on the red carpet and everything on TikTok as well. And so I managed to still see the parts that I was really eager to see. Now, I don't really recall at all who won what. The only thing that I gathered was that the big winner was Oppenheimer, and they got most of the important Oscars. I'm actually not sure how well Barbie did, which was my favorite movie. And it's because I haven't seen Oppenheimer, but I did see Barbie, and I absolutely love that movie. That movie is on repeat. I don't know why. It's probably because it's a musical. It's vibrant. It's got a funny story. It's just one of those rare movies that I know I will be watching and rewatching time and again. But even if Barbie didn't get all the Oscars, it did get the spotlight during this show because Ryan Gosling performed the one of the main songs of the movie, which is called "I'm Just Ken," and it was insanely good. The whole choreography, the music, this was all performed live. I cannot believe that Ryan Gosling, who's an actor, but of course we knew that he could sing and dance from La La Land. He performed that entire song, which is a very complicated song, both in terms of all the different melodies and the tempo changes, but also the choreography. He did it all live on stage there. And there is, of course, no way that you can cut out the parts that go wrong. So they must have been rehearsing this for days and days and days. But the end result was absolutely stunning. I also saw some videos of people filming the podium from where they were sitting. So not only did I see the actual result, and even the camera choreography is just absolutely gobsmackingly good. Considering that the camera is constantly moving, there are all these visual surprises. But if you watch how that actually was performed and how the cameramen are walking around and moving around, it is just one of the most impressive things I've ever seen in a live show. And not to mention that song actually was one of my least favorite songs of the entire soundtrack. And I don't know why, it's just, I didn't understand why that song was so popular, but now that I've seen it live, yes, it is up there with the other song that was my favorite song of the entire movie, which is What Was I Made For? And that song, too, was performed live on stage by Billie Eilish. And it just gave me goosebumps. It was another amazing performance, the total opposite of I'm Just Ken. It was very intimate, very, very beautifully sung. There was an orchestra that was revealed halfway through the song. And I saw several people in the audience actually crying because it's not just because of the performance, but also because the lyrics of the song are so relatable. It's this whole question, what was I made for? Why am I here? And what's my purpose? What's my identity? Who am I? Isn't that the question that we're all asking ourselves at points at various stages in our lives? And sometimes events happen in our lives and we are again questioning, but who am I really? And this is also one of the major themes of the movie Barbie. And it's all about, and this is, I think, why that movie related to so many people, is it's about the quest for purpose in life. Can you truly be who you are? Is it possible to change who you are? Is that allowed? Or are you just like Barbie initially is? Do you have to fit a certain stereotype? There's nothing more stereotypical than Barbie. And yet this whole movie is about self-discovery. And that is a quest, that's a journey that we're all on. So wow, I just love that. I didn't see the monologue by Jimmy Kimmel. I will watch that at some other point. I assume it's Jimmy Kimmel, so you know what you get. it's probably some Trump jokes in there, etc. You either love it or you don't like it. But for me, that wasn't that interesting. What I always like to see are the reactions. And was it Emma Stone who got the wardrobe malfunction? So she walks up to the podium. This was after the live performance of I'm Just Ken, and then she realizes that her dress is broken in the back, and she is so overwhelmed. So she's dealing with this very practical issue of like, I hope my dress stays put now that I'm going on podium. And she's clearly surprised that she has won the Oscar, and then she has to give this live reaction. And I thought it was an amazing reaction, and again, it was one of those goosebump moments, and I thought it was so emotional and so beautiful, especially what she said at the end. So she had finished her speech, and you know that everything is timed to the second, of course, during a live show like that. And then she's like, no, wait, I need to say one more thing. And she starts thanking her family, and then she ends with this tribute to her 3-year-old daughter. And at that time, everybody was crying. And I was also like, I had something in my eye. Let's put it that way. And this is why I love a show like the Oscars so much. Even though I didn't watch it live, it touches you on a guttural level. It moves me, and in a good way. It's a celebration of creativity. The music, everything. It's like you have these few moments where Hollywood is and does what it does best, and I need that right now. We live in such dark times. There's so much despair in the world, and everything is so bleak and hopeless. And then you have these moments where you see the best of what people can do when they come together and create something beautiful. Something, of course, totally inconsequential. This is not going to change the world. But it reminds us that we have a heart, that we are made for beauty, for songs, for laughter, to create instead of to destroy and to hate and to be constantly in this state of rage. That is so unnatural. In Star Wars terms, I would say that pertains to the dark side. Whenever you feel those emotions of anger, of hatred, of despair, that's a dark side of the Force. Whereas the light side of the Force makes you smile, makes you want to go out there and help people. And of course, all that is just a fictional translation of, I truly believe, is the core of our human existence. We are made for the light. We are called to be children of the light. And so many of our brothers and sisters live in darkness. And we cannot truly destroy the darkness, but we can counterbalance it by being joyful and by being creative and by by nurturing the hope. And moments like these where I'm just watching the Oscars, I know it's a show and ultimately it's also about money, but for me it's a celebration of creativity and of joy. And boy, did I eat it up. All of it. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. All right. Speaking of journeys, I want to now talk briefly about an anime series that I've started watching, and that has been one of the most, if not the most impressive anime series I've ever seen. Not because it's very well animated. It's okay. It's good. It's a kind of a fantasy show. It kind of has vibes of The Lord of the Rings, or any RPG, or even Dungeons and Dragons. There are definitely fantasy elements, and it's beautifully drawn and colored and everything. Music is beautiful. But what makes this anime series stand out is the themes that it addresses. This is a series about mortality, about death, about mourning, about the value of the fact that our time here on Earth is limited, which is the total opposite of how we usually look at our finite existence. We try to fight it. We try to stay alive as long as possible, and we're afraid of death. Well, this series takes it, heads on, and talks about how the fact that we are mortal gives every moment of our life, and especially our relations with other people, the friendships, gives it so much more value and weight. If you have limitless time, like the main character of this series, she's called Frieren, she's an elf. She lives forever. So for her, spending 10 years of her life with a bunch of other people, it doesn't really matter to her that much, because she's got centuries ahead of her, and she's already lived for centuries. So she completely disregards the value of that time spent together. And it's only after some of her companions die of old age that she starts to realize that, wait a minute, I missed so much of our time together. And her journey is a journey of discovery, that actually she has the disadvantage over all the others. Even though she's the elf, she knows how to do magic, she can live forever, and yet she is actually the one who struggles the most, enjoying the time that she's been given. And in that respect, I think the whole theme of this series is very akin to what Tolkien talks about in his books, about the journey, of course, the journey of Frodo, the journey of Bilbo, that reflects our own personal journey through life. This is why I wrote the book, Lent for Little Folk. It's all about highlighting that this story that Tolkien crafted is ultimately still so relevant, because it's our story, it's my story. It has a beginning, it has an end, and because of that, it has a purpose. If there's no beginning, if there's no end, what's the purpose? What's the goal? What's the aim? What's the value? And to see a Japanese animation series address this in such an incredible way, I've never seen something like this. And on my TikTok channel, I will certainly create a number of videos in which I'm going to comment on all the various aspects of these themes of mortality and mourning and all that. Let's listen to a little bit of the music. This is the official trailer for, I think it's one of the, Amazon Prime carries it in certain countries, and this is the one that doesn't have much Japanese except for the end. But it gives you an idea of how it sounds. Now, here we go. Series, by the way, if you want to look for it, is Frieren Beyond Journey's End. And I've watched it on Crunchyroll. But, as I said, this could also be available on other platforms. And it's so popular that I wouldn't be surprised if, either Netflix or Prime will start picking this up. This music alone is just amazing. I love it. So again, Frieren. And this is the final. This is the final farewell. So this story starts with actually what in The Lord of the Rings is the end of the story. They've just beaten this demon character, and now the fellowship falls apart and the elf goes away and she only returns 50 years later. And then she's at the funeral of one of the young people that she fought this demon with. And that's where you start to understand what this series truly is about. It's not about the journey towards the completion of the quest. No, this is what happens after. And of course, the title of the show, Beyond Journey's End, is actually, I think, a metaphor or a symbolic way of talking about the afterlife. Like it's beyond the end of our journey here on earth. And one of the other characters of her fellowship is called Himmel, German for heaven. And so it's all about what is your legacy? How do the things that you do here in this life impact the life after this life, if you believe in that, and vice versa? How does the prospect of having something, a life beyond or after this life, how does that impact the way you make choices in this current life? I mean, just insane. I never thought I would see themes like that in an anime series. All right, let's go. Let's lower ourselves back to more standard television. There's one last show that I wanted to bring to your attention, which I've been really enjoying. It's called Resident Alien. And I saw this popping up on, I think, on Netflix. And I noticed that it features Alan Tudyk, who, of course, we'll know from Firefly, and as the voice of K2SO. All right. You know, the droid from Rogue One. Here he plays an alien who crashes while he's on a mission. And we gradually discover what that mission was. It's not a very good one for us here on Earth. But his spacecraft gets damaged. He crashes. And he ends up replacing the doctor in the village. And the alien itself is totally unfamiliar with humans and human lifestyles and human values. And over time, in this series, he discovers what it means to be human, and he actually becomes human a little bit himself. So when he crashes, he looks like an alien. He looks very scary, but he has an ability to make everybody see him as just the guy that he replaces. So he actually kills the local doctor and then takes on his appearance. There's only this one kid that can't be influenced and sees the alien the way he truly looks, and of course initially is super scared of this monster and tries to warn everyone, but nobody believes the boy. So here is the sound of the trailer.
Excuse me, sir. You Dr. Harry Vanderspiegel?
What can I help you with?
We had ourselves a murder in town last night. You're a doctor. We need you to come down and take a look at the body. Doctor.
This is a good mystery, figuring out what happened, like Law and Order. Kung kung.
All right, look, that's one creepy sumbitch. Y'all see that, right?
I have to prove I fit in, that I'm normal like them.
What the hell?
There's something wrong with that man.
Who even are you, Harry Vanderspiegel?
Just a normal human.
This town looks like a slice of Americana, but trust me, it has an underbelly.
My son told me you're an alien.
Well, you don't have anything to worry about. I'm not an alien. Thank you for coming over.
There is a killer out there.
I can help. I'm a good doctor. I'm never wrong.
We strongly believe the body washed up on the beach.
How do you know that?
Because I can feel it in my balls.
Well, and I checked the currents. So the currents and the sheriff's balls.
Everybody's innocent until proven guilty, unless they're guilty.
One of the people here is the murderer. Kung kung.
So intense. I like it. Not for everybody.
Resident Alien. It was initially on Sci-Fi, and I've been watching this on Netflix. Unfortunately, Netflix only carries the first season, but this show has actually been renewed for the third consecutive season. I think the third season just started in February. So hopefully when enough people watch this on Netflix, they will also carry the other seasons. This is one of those shows I started watching and I only saw 10 episodes, and I saw it was from 2021. So I figured it must have been canceled. And normally I don't like to watch series that get canceled, especially if they don't wrap up the story. But apparently this is not the case. This story is still going strong, and I'm such a massive fan of Alan Tudyk. He's got an amazing comical talent. It's a wonderful series, and actually quite well produced as well. So check that out if it's available where you are. And with that, let's move over to the world of books.
Why are you wearing glasses?
Reading.
Reading? I didn't know you could read.
All right, let's talk about a book that has brought all my reading efforts to a grinding halt for more than a month and a half. You know that last year I read 150 books. I love reading. For this year, I wanted to do something different. Instead of reading a lot of books, I wanted to read a couple of, chunkier books, bigger books. There are a number of Brandon Sanderson novels that I really want to read, The Way of the Kings and more of that, some of the newer Mistborn books. I also wanted to continue reading The Wheel of Time, and I had started to read the Red Rising trilogy by Pierce, what's his name, and really liked the first three books, and I knew that there were a couple more books that continued the story, so I figured I might as well continue, and instead of trying to read 150 books, I'll just read 100 books, which will give me more time to attack these like 500-600 page tomes. So I started reading Iron Gold, which is the fourth book in the Red Rising saga. Quick recap for those of you that are unfamiliar with the story. It takes place in the future where Mars has been colonized. On the surface of Mars, which is totally habitable now, you have this upper class elite. Under the surface, they are oppressing slaves that are unaware that you can actually live on the surface of Mars, and they have to slave away to produce, minerals and whatnot for the higher upper class. And then, of course, you've got the Darrow, who is one of the Reds. So every faction on the planet has a different color and also a different function. It's very much like something you see in the Hunger Games and the Divergent series, and it was a bit of a trope back then. The book is, of course, already a number of years old. And so Darrow, being a Red, ultimately ascends to the surface, becomes an infiltrant. What's the word? Anyway, he infiltrates the golden suns live on the surface, and he is genetically modified to look exactly like them. And he gets embroiled in a huge war that is ultimately for the liberation of all these different factions. Now, this new book, Iron Gold, it takes place 10 years after the final conclusion of the trilogy. And it turns out that whole final battle didn't bring about peace. On the contrary, nothing is as they hoped. The world is still a mess. There's still lots of inequality. New rulers have taken the place of the old ones. And even our hero, Darrow, has been more or less corrupted by the power that he yields and has committed war crimes and everything. And I'm reading this and I'm like, wow. That really is not where I hoped the story would go. I wish I had never read this book. And what made it worse, the book also, and this is different from the first three, changes perspectives every chapter. So you've got 4 main characters, and each chapter is told from a different perspective, which at the start makes it super confusing, because this is one of those worlds where you have so many names and so many different people, and already the trilogy was hard to keep track of who is who and who is has an allegiance, and plus there are all sorts of twists and turns. So people that at one point are good guys, they turn out to be traitors, etc., etc. So at the end, you're left with all these names, and now in this book they bring even more people and more characters into the story. You've got the confusing, 4 different perspective stuff. Plus, it's only about war. It's about just things going haywire all the time. It's a miserable book. I was reading it. It's like, I don't like this story anymore. The first 3 books were about liberation from oppression. It was like, yes, this is the classic hero's journey. I like stories like that. This is, my goodness, this is too close to reality. I want to read a story that is uplifting, that gives me hope, not one that talks me down and makes me feel even more miserable afterwards. And so I struggled at the halfway point. I was like, this I should stop reading this. I don't enjoy this. And I'm so confused with all the names. It gives me a headache. But I pushed through. This is maybe kind of my character is like, no, I know that this book has such a massive fan base. I love the first 3 books. It must be me. Maybe it's just keep reading. It will all come together. And once you see the total story, maybe it's easier to understand how the story is built up. So I just kept reading and reading. But because it was so hard to read, I just didn't make any progress. So it took me 6 weeks to read this book. 6 weeks! Last year I would have read 20 books in the same time span, and now only 1 book. And I arrive at the end of the story, and I'm like, I still don't understand the story. I still don't know why I read this. I still don't like what is happening in this story. And this book does not do anything for me, other than just make me frustrated that I spent so much time reading this book. I should have given up reading this after the first 2-3 chapters, but I didn't want to, because I've been wrong before. I have this with movies as well. I start watching a movie and I was like, I really don't like this movie. And then I talk about it on the podcast, and then my listeners tell me, "But you're so wrong. No, please watch it again, and you will." And oftentimes my audience is right, and I was wrong, and I was maybe not in the right state of mind, or I don't know. There are many factors that sometimes cause me not to enjoy something, and then later on I revise my impression, and I hoped that for this book it would be like that, but I don't see myself going back anytime soon. The worst effect that this book had on me was that it now has discouraged me to read, and I'm still debating what to do. I'm someone who loves to keep a commitment. If I say I'm going to run a marathon, then I am going to run that marathon no matter what, even though it's always tough. And it was only because last year I had some problems with my feet that I was physically unable to run the marathon that I aim to run. But I will run it this year. And the same is true for this reading commitment. I said I would read 100 books, and now I'm calculating, can I still make it? If I pick up the rate, if I go back to the strategy that I used last year to read 150 books, then yes, I've lost 3 months now. Well, 2.5. But I can make up for it if I keep my aim at 100 books, but I read it at the speed of 150 books per year. You may be just like, what is he talking about? You read because you enjoy reading. What's a number? But I know what setting this reading goal has meant for me. It brought back reading as a main ingredient in my life. And I have learned so much from the books that I've read, both fiction and nonfiction. I've learned more in 1 year than I've learned in 10 years before. Especially the nonfiction stuff, the psychology, neuroscience. There's just a whole world that I discovered, and lately, in the last part of the year, I started to brush up my my knowledge of biblical scholarship and read more of the current research in biblical studies, and I was just so happy, and it brought me so much, and that is why having a very ambitious goal of reading 100 books, it will guarantee that I will keep reading. And this is the same as with running. If I give up and I say, half a marathon is okay as well. Why am I always so motivated to run a full marathon? But if I sign up for a half marathon, I will only train for 50% instead of 100%. And so the more ambitious the goal, the more it helps me to get better. And this is why I don't want to give up on that goal of reading 100 books. But you'll be my witnesses if I can actually make it or not. And with that, it is time to wrap things up. At least when it comes to my public version of the break. As you know, this show has 2 versions. We've got the one that all of you are listening to right now. But then I record an extra half an hour about different topics. And I give that to all my patrons. So everyone who supports me on Patreon will get access to this bigger show. So what am I going to talk about in the premium part of the show? I will give you my recipe for the most amazing mushroom soup. Yes, I talk about cooking as well. And I'll talk a bit about online retreats, because I'm working on one. And I've done some research on how to organize that. And that is actually something you may want to remember, because you're going to be invited for that as well at one point. And I want to talk about the new MacBook Airs, and also want to talk a little bit about what the heck is Apple doing right now, because it's not pretty. So all that and more coming up in the premium part of the show. Last reminder, you can still get my free book, Lent for Little Folk, about Tolkien and the time of Lent, by going to mediapriest.com/Lent. And I hope that many of you will download it and enjoy it. We'll talk soon. Take care, and God bless.